Warning: the following podcast, which contains strong language and mature content, is unsuitable for children or for the faint of heart. The subject matter discussed will be frightening and graphic in nature. Listener discretion is advised.
When you wanna hear about the paranormal, you get the Spooked Girls. True crime that makes you hypothermal. With the three Spooked Girls, stabby snippets will give you dreams. Tara and Jessica will make you along with the Spooked Girls. Bring on the slaughter, we on that haunted ground. Spooked Girls. The three Spooked Girls.
Hey Spooksters, and welcome back to another episode here on Three Spooked Girls. My name is Tara, and as always, I'm here with my girlfriend Jessica.
Hello.
Hello. And today, as you guys can see by the title, we are bringing you an update episode on Diddy. There has been so much going on. We went through all of the court documents and stuff with Cassie's case. So if you missed that, go back and check that out. It's probably a few months ago now, but we did do a full episode on that. But before we get into this, if you are not familiar with this case, please just take trigger warning. There's a lot of disturbing details, abuse, trafficking, all kinds of things. So if that kind of stuff does trigger you, we will see you next week. We're going to dive on into this horrific shit.
So just so that you guys know, I have not read anything. When Tara said she was going to do an episode, I asked her if she wanted me to blind react, because I know you guys like that, or if she wanted me to read up. And so we decided I would blind react. So if you haven't heard anything, you're in the same boat as me. So
yeah,
be prepared. There will be some shock and awe, probably.
Yeah. And if you are one of those people that are not familiar with this case or with everything going on, I don't even know what to call it at this point, I am going to highly recommend, again, go listen to our Cassie episode.
Mm-hmm.
That gives a lot of light on all of these charges we're going to go over right now. So first of all, on this indictment, they list all his AKAs, right? I'm not going to read them every time. I'm just going to say defendant because it's literally his legal name. Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Diddy, PD, and Love. So no, that's going to take too much time.
Too much.
So count 1, racketeering conspiracy. The grand jury charges for decades Sean Combs abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on the employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise for those members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction to justice. Meaning motherfuckers have been building this case for years. Just wait till you hear how long.
I'm excited and nervous all at the same time.
The defendant operated his businesses headquartered at various times in Manhattan and Los Angeles under a variety of U.S.-based corporate entities, including Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, and Combs Global. Collectively, the Combs Business. Corporate entities in the Combs Business included, among other things, record labels, a recording studio, an apparel line, an alcoholic spirits business, a marketing agency, and a television network and media company. So there is bad shit in every single thing he's made money off of.
I mean, bad people do bad things.
Yep. At all times relevant in this indictment, the defendant engaged in a persistent and pervasive pattern of abuse towards women and other individuals. This abuse was, at times, verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual. As a part of his pattern of abuse, Combs manipulated women to participate in highly orchestrated performances of sexual acts with male commercial sex workers. Also, quick little footnote, in case you guys aren't familiar why they're saying commercial sex workers, is because they're referring to escorts specifically in this. At times, Combs and others acting at his direction made arrangements for women and commercial sex workers to fly to his location. Combs ensured participation from the women by, among other things, obtaining and distributing narcotics to them, controlling their careers, leveraging his financial support, and threatening to cut off the same, and using intimidation and violence. Physical abuse by Sean Combs was recurrent and widely known. On numerous occasions from at least in or about 2009 and continuing for years, Combs assaulted women by, among other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects at, and kicking them. These assaults were, at times, witnessed by others and included one instance at a Los Angeles hotel in or about March 2016, which was captured on video and later publicly reported, where Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a woman as she was attempting to leave. When a member of hotel security staff intervened, Combs attempted to bribe the staff member to ensure silence. And we all know who they're talking about in this. They're talking about Cassie. Combs' violence was not limited to these women. It extended to his employees, witnesses to his abuse, and others. The defendant used Combs' business, including certain employees, to carry out, facilitate, and cover up his abuse and commercial sex. Those employees, including security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and high-ranking supervisors, and other close associates, acted as Combs' intermediaries, and their conduct was facilitated and assisted by Combs' control of the Combs business. This next heading is the Combs Enterprise. From at least in or about 2008 through on or about the date of the filing of this indictment, so 2024, the defendant and others known and unknown were members and associates of a criminal organization, and this is in parentheses, the Combs Enterprise or the Enterprise. Members and associates of the Combs Enterprise engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other activities, sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, coercion and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. The Combs Enterprise, including its leadership, its members, and its associates, constituted an enterprise as defined by Title 18, Code Section 19614. And that is a group of individuals associated, in fact, although not a legal entity. The Combs Enterprise consisted of Sean Combs, entities within the Combs business, including but not limited to Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, and Combs Global, individuals employed by and associated with the Combs business, and others known and unknown.
They're not really like naming his like co-conspirators in this.
No, not yet. Not yet. They're not naming them yet. The Combs Enterprise constituted an ongoing organization whose members functioned as a continuing unit for a purpose of achieving the objectives of the Combs Enterprise. If you take a drink every time I say the Combs Enterprise, you would be dead. So that's fun.
Let's not do that.
I just had to fucking point it out. I'm sorry. I'm just reading it. Okay. The Combs Enterprise was engaged in and its activities affected interstate and foreign commerce. The Combs Enterprise operated in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. At all times relevant to this indictment, the defendant was the leader of Combs Enterprise. The defendant and others, known and unknown, participated in unlawful and other activities related to the conduct of the Combs Enterprise's affairs. These individuals included Combs business employees, such as members of Combs security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and high-ranking supervisors, as well as other close associates of Combs. So all these motherfuckers are fucked. Now, purposes of Combs Enterprise includes the following: operating a global business in the media, entertainment, and lifestyle industries, including, among other things, all of that stuff we talked about earlier. I'm not going to say that paragraph again. And then preserving, protecting, promoting, and enhancing his power and reputation of literally Sean Combs as a brand. Enriching members and associates of the enterprise, including its leader, Combs, and in particular those who demonstrated loyalty to Combs and willingness to conceal his crimes. So he's rewarding his little lackeys.
You kind of have to.
Right, exactly. You have to pay for loyalty with, bad people. And preserving, protecting, promoting, and enhancing the power of Combs' enterprise, including the power of its leader, Combs, through violence, use of firearms, threats of violence, coercion, and verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. Now we're going to get in a little more detail. So, fulfilling the personal desires of Combs, particularly those related to Combs' sexual gratification, including throughout the exploitation of women and their use of commercial sex workers, enabling Combs and other members and associates of the Combs enterprise to engage in unlawful acts of violence, including sexual violence, sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for the purposes of prostitution, coercion, and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics distribution, and other crimes, and concealing the commission of such acts. Securing absolute loyalty from the members of Combs Enterprise, including through acts of violence and threats, and protecting the Combs Enterprise and its members and associates, including Combs, from detection and prosecution by law enforcement authorities through acts of intimidation, manipulation, bribery, and threats of retaliation against individuals who witness the crimes committed by members and associates of the Enterprise.
The more you talk about this, and like, because I sometimes have to read like legal briefs and stuff, like when it relates to bills, and it kind of reminds me of like the unnecessary language that people use because they have to say it like so specifically, and like our attorneys at work will be like, no, you can't remove this line because you have to say the same shit over and over again.
Yep.
Because otherwise it's loopholes.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, especially the spooksters that have been here a while, you guys know, like, these documents do get repetitive, but like, it's just so much easier to read out loud and break it down with us for my own brain. So y'all get to participate, okay? Okay, so now we are at means and the methods of the enterprise. The defendant and other members and associates of Combs Enterprise conducted and participated in the conduct of affairs of Combs Enterprise, including the following. Combs and other members and associates of Combs Enterprise wielded the power and prestige of Combs' role at the Combs business to intimidate, threaten, and lure female victims into Combs' orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Combs then used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sex acts with male commercial sex workers that Combs referred to as, among other things, freak-offs.
What a weird thing just to be like, I have these things to do. They're called freak-offs. It's like, oh my God, tell me that you're weird without telling me that you're weird.
I did a post in the group just being like, hey, if there's anything you guys want me to go over or whatever, like, let me know type of thing. And somebody said... with all this like Diddy stuff. She said she was in the car with her, I think she said her father-in-law or her dad, one of the two. And he asked her, what's a freak off? And I was like, oh no.
Don't tell your dad or father-in-law.
Tell him Google is free. Oh my God.
Google is free, and please do it out of my presence. Like, I don't need to be participating in this educational experience for you.
Okay. Freak-offs were elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, masturbated during, and often electronically recorded.
I just keep going back to that video of that porn star who was like, I was basically his sex slave, and he would like masturbate in the corner and tell me what to do. And I was like, oh my God. And the fun part about that is that video came out, or that was like years ago. This wasn't recent.
Yeah. People been saying and nobody be listening.
I mean, he was trying to throw Diddy under the bus so that he could like save his own skin because he had done some terrible things.
Oh, gotcha. During freak-offs, Combs distributed a variety of controlled substances to victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant, aka fucking drug them out beyond where they don't even know where the fuck they are. Let's be honest. Sometimes, unbeknownst to the victims, Combs kept the videos he filmed of victims engaging in sex acts with commercial sex workers. After freak-offs, Combs and the victims typically received IV fluids to recover from the physical exertion and drug use.
The fuck? I mean, I get it.
I mean, plenty of people do IVs after like drinking and stuff, so.
That's true. It's just like that it's that extensive that you would need to like.
To mention it? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you, these people are not fucking playing around. They're making sure that this is an ironclad case. So that's why we're getting so much detail and repetitiveness.
Oh.
Which I know you get, but like, if you're listening and you're not familiar with like, you know.
No loopholes.
Going through documents and stuff, yeah. Members and associates of Combs Enterprise, including high-ranking supervisors, security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and other Combs business employees, facilitated the freak-offs by, among other things, booking hotel rooms for the freak-offs, stocking the hotel rooms in advance with the required freak-off supplies, including controlled substances. You ready for this? You ready?
I'm sorry. Hold on. Before you read this, just imagine this person getting this list. Like, they're new. They're brand new to this whole operation, and they get this list, and they're like, I gotta get what? I have to go get this? Okay.
Roll up to fucking
Like Costco?
Walmart and get like all the lube.
Oh my God.
Oh God. Hopefully at least they like
So many lubes.
fucking had it delivered or something. Jesus.
Amazon that shit.
But I doubt it, considering he's such a fucking fuck. He probably liked that they would have to go buy it.
It's another power thing where like someone is buying like 30 bottles of lube and the cashier is like, we got a big weekend planned.
Yeah.
I would go to 30. My ass would have been like, I'm going to 30 different stores.
I would have just, been like, multiple trips in multiple places. It's fine.
Like go to a place I'd never like go back to again. Be like, well, I can never go to that CVS again. I bought all their lube.
Right. Because that transaction's going to stay in that cashier's mind forever.
That's who I'm waiting for. Right now, if you're listening and you've been one of these people, if you have cashed out some weird shit, just go to the Facebook group, message us, let us know the weird shit you've been like, oh Lord. Yeah, that would be a fun episode just to read.
Right? I was just thinking, I'm like, if we get enough, I will compile them so we can read them to you guys. All right, let me get a drink of water and do my last preparation. Okay, ready for the list besides drugs? Okay, the obvious. Baby oil and lubricant, 2 separate. Extra linens and lighting. Cleaning the hotel rooms after the freak-offs. Man, whoever has that fucking job. I'm so sorry. To try to mitigate room damage, arranging travel for victims, commercial sex workers, and combs to and from freak-offs. Supplying combs with requested supplies, delivering large sums of cash to combs to pay the commercial sex workers, and the scheduling and delivery of IV fluids. In or about March 2024, during searches of Combs' residence in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized various freak-off supplies, including narcotics and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lube.
They just can't.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was coming. I was like, no.
Over 1,000. Like, when I was reading it, I was sitting like next to Shannon and I knew it was coming. But I still fucking died. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Which makes me think like they got some Amazon monthly subscription or every 2 weeks and it's getting delivered to the house. And I just imagine, this is what I'm imagining, okay, is this giant, like, and I know it's not like this, but this is like in my head, right? What it really looked like was, it was one of those giant ass, like bougie closets. Think like Paris Hilton's.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
Paris Hilton or like one of the housewives. And it's just all lube, all fucking baby oil, all of the random
Backlit
condoms, drugs, sex shit. Like, I'm sure there's a fucking assistant that had to put the drugs in little like glass jars and shit. Like, I can see it.
And it's all like backlit and like acrylic shelves.
With drawers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I probably in reality, it's probably just like a storage room with like boxes of shit.
Oh yeah, that's why I was like, I'm just making this up. This is just what my brain pictured when I read that the first time.
But I love our narrative. But you know what? What if we're right?
I don't want to be.
Here's the thing. If you're calling something a freak off, you know that like part of you, there has to be some sort of display. There has to be some sort of like the villain walks you into their lair and is like, this is my thing.
He's got those vibes for sure.
It's like the fucked up red room.
Yeah.
Red rooms are fine. I want everyone to know I'm not hating on red rooms, but this is the fucked up part where it's like you walk in and there's like 40 different kinds of lube displayed and they're like, we have backups.
Okay, well, like, what person that's using, like, that kind of room for, like, you know, consensual stuff, like, you're not gonna have that much fucking lube. He's fucking weird.
Okay, I'm gonna say this because I thought about this on my drive home yesterday.
Uh-huh.
Because obviously, like, the 1,000 bottles of lube and shit was, like, out in the media, like, literally was the first thing they took from this thing. Tell me that you've never actually pleased a woman. Because, not to get into too much of anatomy, but when a woman enjoys it, there's some sort of self-lubrication that kind of happens. If you need 1,000 bottles of lube, there's just there's nothing happening that's pleasurable for that woman.
Well, no. They're getting raped and assaulted.
Well, yeah. Coercion is not consent, so.
No, the fuck it isn't.
It definitely gives that, like, Andrew Tate vibes.
Ew, yeah, for sure. Okay, Combs subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse to cause the victims to engage in freak-offs. Combs maintained control over his victims through, among other things, physical violence, promises of career opportunities, granting and threatening to withhold financial support, and by other coercive means including tracking their whereabouts, dictating the victims' appearances, monitoring their medical records, controlling their housing, and supplying them with controlled substances. During and separate from freak-offs, Combs, among other things, hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. These assaults often resulted in injuries that took days or weeks to heal. Combs also threatened victims' careers and livelihoods, including if they resisted participation in freak-offs. Victims believed they could not refuse Combs's demands without risking their financial or job security, or without repercussions in the form of physical or emotional abuse. Combs also used these sensitive, embarrassing, and incriminating recordings that he made during freak-offs as collateral to ensure the obedience and silence of the victims. Yeah, blackmail is a very powerful thing, unfortunately, especially someone with so much influence.
And a lot of it has to do with, like, not just my career could end or I could lose the place I live. He physically abused people. So it's on top of the fact that you could lose everything. But, you know, people sometimes are like, you know what? I could lose everything. I could go home. I could start over. I could figure that out. But it's if I say no, he might beat me to death. Like, where does the line end? You know, like, if he's willing to do all of this, who's to say that if he starts attacking me physically, it's going to stop and I'm going to be alive? I mean, that's a fear I would have in that situation. Mm-hmm. If he's, you know, I mean, we talked about it with Cassie's case, like he drug her down the hallway by her hair.
In the public part of the hotel.
Right. Like that's what he did in public. Imagine what he does in private. Because at any point in time, someone could have popped out of a room and been like, what the fuck are you doing? He was in a fucking towel. Could you imagine if like two dudes popped out of a room and were like, the fuck, and like went after him? Like he's so powerful. He doesn't even, and I could say powerful with like quotes powerful. He doesn't think about the repercussions. So if I'm in that situation, I'm thinking like, fuck, he could kill me.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise, including Combs' security personnel, at times carried firearms. On more than one occasion, Combs himself carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten others, including victims of and witnesses to his abuse. In or about March 2024, during the searches of Combs' residence in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 AR-15s with defaced serial numbers as well as drum magazines. And if you don't know what that means with the defaced serial number, that means that's like a black market fucking weapon right there. Members and associates of Combs Enterprise enabled Combs' control over victims by following his directions regarding financial payments to victims, advancing or suppressing the victims' career opportunities, and acquiring the controlled substances Combs used to keep the victims compliant. Members and associates of the Combs Enterprise at times witnessed Combs' violence towards the victims or the victims' injuries caused by Combs without intervening. Well, duh, what the fuck? They're on his payroll. Like, what do you fucking expect? Like, a good person's not going to work for somebody like that. Sorry.
Oh, for fucking sure. I mean, if he's got illegal guns, there are people in this world who are no longer here and have just disappeared and never been brought up because of the fact that, like, you know, maybe he didn't do it himself, but you pay bad people enough, they'll do anything for you.
Yep. So, instead, members and associates of the Combs Enterprise helped conceal the violence and abuse by, among other things, assisting Combs in monitoring and preventing victims from leaving locations such as hotels or Combs' residences. These occasions included instances in which a victim was required to remain in hiding, sometimes for several days at a time, to recover from injuries that Combs inflicted, without being publicly observed. Meaning, referring to Cassie, obviously, because she is a public figure. Members and associates of the Combs Enterprise also assisted Combs in locating and contacting victims who attempted to flee his abuse. When employees witnessed his abuse or others threatened Combs' authority or reputation, Combs and members and associates of the enterprise engaged in acts of violence, threats of financial and reputational harm, and verbal abuse. These acts of violences included kidnapping and arson. So we burning people's houses down because they don't want to be your fucking bitch? Like, are you kidding me right now? Like, is that what's happening? Not saying that's fact. I'm just like, that was like what popped into my head. You know what I mean? Or people's businesses. Like,
I mean, yeah, arson is such a big thing because, like, if you don't have the right kind of insurance, you're fucked.
Yeah. In addition, on multiple occasions, Combs threw both objects and people, as well as hit, dragged, choked, and shoved others. When Combs's authority or reputation was threatened by the possibility of negative publicity or legal or law enforcement action against him, including in or about late 2023, following, the lawsuit with Cassie. So following the public allegations of Combs's crimes, Combs and members and associates of the enterprise pressured witnesses and victims, including through attempted bribery, to stay silent and not report what they experienced or knew to law enforcement. On phone calls, Combs and other members and associates of the enterprise, among other things, provided these victims and witnesses with a false narrative of events in order to conceal Combs's crimes. Combs caused these calls to be recorded on at least 2 occasions. All right, so back to the racketeering conspiracy, okay? So, from at least in or about 2008 through on or about the date of the filing of this indictment in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, the defendant and others known and unknown being persons employed by and associated with the Combs enterprise, described in paragraphs 6 through 12 of this indictment, an enterprise engaged in and the activities of which affected interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly combined, conspired, confederated, and agreed together and with each other to violate the racketeering laws of the United States. Multiple acts involving kidnapping, chargeable under blah, 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 blah. Multiple acts of arson, multiple acts of bribery, multiple acts indictable under Title 18, multiple acts indictable under another section. Like, there's 4 of those under different penal codes, multiple penal codes per each of those 4 bullet points, if that makes sense. So lots of fucking charges is basically what they're saying. Multiple offenses involving the possession with intent to distribute or the distribution of narcotics and controlled substances, including cocaine, oxycodone, alprazolam, meth, and ketamine is in here as well. So lots of, quote, party favors that are very, very dangerous. They also list the defendant agreed that a conspirator would commit at least 2 acts of racketeering activity in the conduct of the affairs of Combs Enterprise. Also, notice of special sentencing factor is listed, and this says, from at least in or about 2009 up to and including in or about 2018, the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, as part of his agreement to conduct and participate in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs Enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity, the defendant agreed to, in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly recruit, entice, harbor, transport, provide, obtain, advertise, maintain, patronize, and solicit by any means a person knowing and in reckless disregard of the fact that means of force, threat of force, fraud, and coercion, and any combination of such means would be used to cause the person to engage in a commercial sex act in violation of, blah, blah, blah code. And attempted, aided and abetted, willfully caused the same, to wit, Combs recruited, enticed, labored, transported, and maintained a person, victim 1, and attempted to aid and abetted, willfully cause victim 1 to engage in commercial sex acts, knowing in reckless disregard the fact that victim 1 was engaged in a commercial sex acts as a result of force, fraud, and coercion. Count 3, transportation to engage in prostitution. The grand jury further charges from the same time period, 2009, in or about 2009 through now, in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, the defendant knowingly transported an individual in interstate and foreign commerce with intent that the individual engage in prostitution, and attempted and aided and abetted and willfully caused the same, to wit, Combs transported, aided and abetted and willfully caused the transportation of female victims and commercial sex workers in interstate and foreign commerce on multiple occasions with the intent that they engage in prostitution. And remember when they originally did the raid and they had those fucking, those shipping container things that they caught too late and they were empty? That's that. Okay. Forfeiture allegations. As a result of committing the offense alleged in count 1 of this indictment, the defendant shall forfeit to the United States any and all interests the defendant acquired or maintained during the violation of Title 18, U.S. Code Section 1962. Any and all interests, securities of, claims against, and property or contractual rights of any kind affording a source of influence over the enterprise named and described herein, which the defendant established, operated, controlled, conducted, and participated in the conduct of in violation of Title 18, and any and all property constituting and derived from proceeds obtained directly and indirectly, said offense including but not limited to a sum of money in United States currency representing the amount of proceeds traceable liable to the commission of said offense. As a result of committing the offense alleged in count 2 of this indictment, the defendant shall forfeit to the United States, and pursuant to Title 18, U.S. Code Section 1594, any and all property, real, impersonal, involved in, used, or intended to be used to commit or facilitate the commission of said offense, and any and all property traceable to such property, and any and all property, real, impersonal, constituting or derived from proceeds obtained directly and indirectly as a result of said offense, including but not limited to sum of money. Same thing, fucking everything. He's basically being told, like, bitch, we're taking everything you fucking got, so fuck you. So I won't read that again for the third time, but it's for like each charge. And substitute assets provision. If any of the above described forfeitable property as a result of any act or omission of the defendant cannot be located upon the exercise of due diligence, has been transferred or sold to or deposited with a third person, has been placed beyond the jurisdiction of the court, has been substantially diminished in value, or has been commingled with other properties which cannot be subdivided without difficulty. It is the intent that they're gonna fucking go after his bitch ass, and yeah, and then the judge signed it. So, motherfucker, we got a lot of stuff going on, and it's about fucking time. It is about fucking time. So yeah, like we talked about, Cassie filed her lawsuit. There was like a bunch that came through. So she did that in November. There was that like extension from the state of New York for victims of these kind of crimes. And we had a Jane Doe who filed that December. I don't believe we really had talked about that, but basically the Jane Doe said she was 17 years old and this occurred in 2008. In her filing, it says that she was sex trafficked and gang raped by Diddy and other men. She allegedly flew out to meet him in New York City and was given, quote, copious amounts of drugs and alcohol, end quote, before the men forced themselves onto her. And then that's when that whole like fucking video he had where he was like, enough's enough, like all that shit came out. This was the one we were talking about earlier, February 2024. Another lawsuit. This one was filed by music producer Rodney Little Rod Jones. And then in March, that's when things start happening. That's when the homes were raided, right?
Right.
Yeah, he got on a private jet, tried to run away, basically.
I was so confused by what happened because, like, from what I understood is, like, he got on the plane, but then, like, he didn't get on the plane. Like, he faked getting on a plane, so people thought he ran away, but he was, like, hiding out somewhere else. This is just, like, a weird TikTok rabbit hole I fell down for no reason.
So there was like video footage where he got arrested at the airport. So in that clip, he's pacing around the outside of customs. They were stopped at Miami's airport and Homeland Security just showed up right on time. That sucks for him. And then 2 of his sons got arrested at the LA home. So it was like a gotcha, bitch. Like it was one of those moments. And then his son, Christian, was accused of sexual assaulting a woman in April from an incident in 2022. In May, Diddy's lawyers tried to file a motion to dismiss Jane Doe's lawsuit, but the security footage came out and they're like, well, you beat the fuck out of this other lady, so no, we're not going to dismiss it.
He's just this is the thing. Diddy has been very fortunate for so long that people have looked the other way because he's been one of those celebrities who does just enough goodwill, quote unquote, that people are like, all these rumors can't be true. It's more like fucked up people are like jealous of Diddy, so they're saying these things about him.
That's how he tried to position it, yeah.
Yeah, and like now people are like, oh no, he was doing those things.
More allegations came in May of this year that accused him of drugging and sexually assaulting a victim in 1995 in New York City. There was also talks of she was forced by Diddy to have sex with his late ex-girlfriend, Kim Porter. There's so many rabbit holes. For those that don't know, she is not alive. And then that's when like his lawyers and them were really trying to like push like it's for the money, it's for the money. But multiple victims, including the Jane Doe, came forward and spoke with Rolling Stone and said it's not about the money. Dickerson Neal had told the outlet that it's not about making sure the world sees this man who rose to this level of an icon is actually sick and has left so many victims in the wake of his unpunished, disgusting behavior for years. So they're like, we don't give a fuck about settlement. We just want people to know. Like, right. Fuck. And there's been more, there's like 2 more lawsuits between last month and September. And the big one, well, I don't know if you want to say big one, they're all equally important, but like another one I was like, ooh, fuck yes, was Danity Kane member Dawn Richard filed a lawsuit against Diddy. Because we all know Aubrey O'Day has been saying this for fucking ever. So like, you're proud of them that they, you know, they feel like strong enough to do that, because this is just, it's awful. So in her lawsuit, she accused Diddy of sexual abuse, manipulation, and terrorizing her. She also alleged that she witnessed Diddy abuse Cassie and Porter in front of her and claimed Diddy promised to advance her singing career if she gave in to his sexual demands following her time on MTV's Making the Band. And one of his lawyers said that he was, quote, shocked and disappointed. It's unfortunate that Miss Richards has cast their 20-year friendship aside to try and get money from him. But Mr. Combs is confident that standing on the truth and looks forward to providing that in court. Like, you're fucking delusional, bitch. Like, Jesus fuck.
Not to give Diddy any credit.
In Diddy's mind, he's just chilling. He's just chilling and he'll get to go home. That's what he's fucking thinking.
Right. Because we've seen this happen, like probably before 2016, we saw a lot of these men beat allegations like this. And then the great thing that happened with the Me Too movement is that men have kind of started realizing that when they abuse women, that women don't go away, and that we're not great at it still, but we're so much better than we used to be in the believing of women. And that's what's taken so fucking long with this, is that women have come out for years and said this shit. Like, we're talking about Aubrey, like she's been shouting this for like a decade, it feels like.
Yeah, for sure.
No one believed her. They're like, oh, she's just bitter. She just wanted Diddy and he didn't want her. And that's how we've treated women.
She's crazy. She's all, yeah, exactly.
And then we wonder why men like Sean Diddy Combs like gets to have like millions and like, I don't know how rich he is.
He's a billionaire.
Yeah. He has all this money. He has two big homes, a private jet. He's got an enterprise, quote unquote. And he feels untouchable because we've made women crazy.
Yep. Also in September, Diddy was ordered to pay a $100 million default judgment for a civil lawsuit filed by a Michigan inmate. Was this the one you were telling me about?
Maybe. I don't know where he's incarcerated currently.
Oh, okay. By a Michigan inmate who accused him of sexual assault. The default judgment was ordered after Diddy failed to appear in a virtual hearing. Derek Lee Cardeos Smith accused the rapper of drugging and sexually assaulting him at a 1997 party in Detroit.
No.
It is or no?
It's not. No.
Oh. Diddy proceeded to challenge the ruling by filing an emergency motion to vacate the default judgment. He also filed to dissolve a prelim injunction and temporary restraining order. But they didn't fucking care. You know what I mean? And which will bring us to Diddy being arrested on September 16th. Ha 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 ha, motherfucker. So he pled not guilty. His team decided to put together this package essentially to try to get a deal for Diddy because he wanted to be out of prison until his trial. He wanted to have a bail of $50 million so that way he could go home during this. And the judge fucking denied this and he, like, you can watch the whole thing, like, it's all listed out. Also, the press conference from the, like, after his indictment is on my TikTok, so you guys can watch the whole thing too. Basically, they were like, you're a flight risk. You have this long proven history of fucking threatening and coercing people and all this other shit. Like, we're not going to fuck up this investigation by letting you out and letting you get to people.
Right.
So you're going to fucking stay where you are. Which is like, well, duh. Like, that's literally half of his charges is like bribery and shit.
Of course. Like, he thinks like, oh, I'll just pay more money. Like, I'll pay $50 million to get out and they'll let me out. That's time for him to destroy evidence. That's time for him to do all this shit. And thank God, because, you know, there's a lot of judges out there who'd be like, okay, we'll take the $50 million and you can go.
They're like, no, fuck you. You're going to sit in this cell. Shortly after that, they placed him on suicide watch. The prosecution and all of them, they're saying he wasn't like giving any signs of it. This was a preventative measure. Epstein. That's all I gotta say. So they're just doing it to make sure this motherfucker lives to be prosecuted.
Yeah, because it's not necessarily him who might take him out. It might be someone else.
Oh, yeah, it might be somebody else, too, that doesn't want to be implicated. Yeah, for sure. But it's just so funny because, like, his lawyer, of course, has made a comment about that and was trying to be like, essentially, like, obviously I'm paraphrasing, but basically like, I don't know why they put him on suicide watch. His mental health is fine. He's ready and he's focused to work on his defense so he can be let free. Like, that's what she said, basically.
If I was his lawyer, I would be going with the fact that, like, he's been put on suicide watch because they think someone would kill him, to basically bolster sympathy for him. That's where I would go with it. Like,
oh, for sure. For sure.
So if you remember earlier, I referenced a former porn star. His name was Jonathan Audi or Udi. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. Basically, by the way, he was arrested in 2018 for allegedly shooting up the former President Trump's Florida golf courses, telling cops he had allegedly been Sean Diddy Combs' sex slave. And like, there's a video of it. I sent it to Tara. I might post it on Instagram or something in a few days or when this goes up. Basically, he's saying that like he had sex with Cassie. Like Sean forced him to have sex with Cassie while he sat and masturbated in the corner. And that he would direct this man to do things.
Yeah, he did that a lot.
Yeah. And I think one of the things is like, this is a moment where, and it says that he had sex with both of them. This is like, when we talk about like commercial sex, like they talk about escorts, but I also think there's probably some porn stars in this too, who like, you know, are like drawn in by the glamour of the Diddy lifestyle. But that's so weird. Like, no kink shaming, but like, this is the weirdest cuck situation I've ever like fucking heard of, is that like, it's non-consensual cuckism is, I don't even know if cuckism is a word, but it is now. It's just ridiculous. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Think about like, if I had billions of dollars, the cool shit I would be doing with my life. I would be traveling. I would be seeing the world. There's so many other things you could have done with your life, Sean, but you've chosen to be like below the scum of the earth. Allegedly.
Alleged piece of shit.
For legal purposes. For legal purposes. Sometimes I say things so full chested on this show that I'm like, oh, I should have said allegedly after that.
All right. Well, that is where we're going to leave our Diddy update off. I will absolutely bring you more as it comes because shit's going to be hitting the fan hard for a lot of people. And buckle up. That's all I got to say.
There's just one celebrity who is connected to Diddy that I hope this takes down.
Ashton Kutcher?
No.
Who are you talking about?
J-Lo.
Oh, hope it takes down.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a hot take. I have a hot take about J-Lo. I have a really hot take. Okay, there are two ways this can go, and this is what I'm convinced of. Jessica already knows my theory. I would have to like look into it more to provide more details, but there was an incident like in the 90s when they were like, you know,
bar hopping
and shit, that someone was killed behind a bar in an alley, and J-Lo's the one that had the gunshot residue on her, not Diddy, but it got blamed on Diddy, but then like obviously like nothing really happened about it, like no actual repercussions, and her, of course, like obviously like she was out of that. I have a few thoughts. I don't like J-Lo, but here's the thing. I'm thinking, one, it's that allegedly she did that. It was after, you know, whatever trauma bullshit stuff of Diddy's she went through. I would not be surprised if he was like, you fucking say shit about me, I'm gonna let all of this out about you, and your life's gonna be ruined, and you're gonna go to prison, and you're fucked. I think that's why she fucking moved across the country when they broke up, because she wanted to get away from him. And I can't remember their handle, but somebody also mentioned, like with Ben Affleck, to go with this theory, that she married Ben Affleck, who was like an it guy at the time, like a big it guy, golden boy. Everybody loved him in the entertainment world and all the stuff he was doing. So she did that to completely remove herself from that and just like pretend it didn't happen.
Oh, because she course corrected. Yeah. She went from having this like bad boy of a boyfriend to having Ben Affleck as a partner, who is like the good old, I mean, he's from Boston, but like he's still like the American dream, like of a guy. Like, well, right. He's successful. He still seems to care about his community he came from. He seems pretty great. Like, I mean, I think Ben Affleck is weird, but that's just personally.
But like, you have to think about it because this is the 90s.
Right.
Him and Matt Damon, like, they were everywhere, you know? Like,
they
all
were.
of those guys. So like, I see that as being fully intentional. I'm not saying she didn't love him or whatever, but it's like, that was obviously very intentional. So I agree with that creator. I apologize. I don't remember who it was.
And you know what? It makes sense because I'm assuming if this is true, like she may have course corrected again because of the fact that like people were probably like, there was probably some law enforcement approaching her being like, we need to talk to you about Diddy. And she was like, nope, because, you know, she doesn't want to be like associated with him. And I get like, I would understand that. Like if I had ever dated Diddy, I'd be like, I don't want to talk about it. There's also the thought that like Diddy coerced so many people, like there could be crimes that he coerced her into doing.
That was my like other little fork of the road with that, was that, you know, he made her do it. And it would fall under the same kind of train of thought, like, you know, that whole like, I'll fucking out you type of thing. At the end of the day, whether you like J-Lo or not, we don't know like what kind of shit she possibly could have went through with him. We don't know.
Right.
And at the end of the day, whether I like you or not, like if you're a victim to something like that and you don't want to talk about it, you shouldn't have to.
It's true.
If you got to talk to authorities and all that, like, yes, go for it, whatever. But it's like, she doesn't owe anybody publicly to fucking come out with all this. Like, she doesn't have to tell, like, she doesn't owe it to any of you. So if anyone feels like you feel like owed by J-Lo to hear her side, like, no, the fuck you don't. No, the fuck you don't. That's just the matter of the fact with it. Any of the victims.
It's very true. And people are very brave because this is like a big, like if this is what's going on, like if Sean has had this whole time, like decades worth of the ability to coerce people, pay people off.
It's going to start a whole fucking thing. I'm telling you.
Cassie, in my opinion, is one of the bravest people on the planet because of the fact that like you don't just stand up to someone like this because they could make you go away.
Exactly.
And he did it with her music career.
And you said like in that last episode, like she's married and has a kid now and all that good stuff though.
Yeah, she seems to be in a really good like place publicly, if that makes sense. Well, I don't know privately because like if you've gone through like they were together for so long, my heart breaks for the victims because they probably like, especially like the victims like that this has gone on for decades. They probably thought there's no way in hell I'm ever going to get justice for what was done to me. That's why people ask, like, why do they do like civil lawsuits? Well, because after statute of limitation, the only thing you can do is a civil lawsuit. That only hurts their pocketbook. So that gives the narrative of like, oh, they're only coming out for money. But that's because they probably felt like if they went to the police, if they went to someone before, it would have been laughed at. Because I'm sure that's probably a line he's sold them. Who the fuck is going to believe you? We see people who don't have money say this to people. If I had $1 billion in the bank, or if I knew that someone had $1 billion in the bank, I know that their reach is so much farther than mine and they can pay people and they are paying people off. And I really hope that this catches a lot of corrupt. There has to be corrupt law enforcement involved with this. There has to be corrupt attorneys involved with this. And if you're sitting there going, I hope that's so bad, Jessica, you're hoping. No, I hope that they get caught because it needs to fucking stop. There are victims out there who never get justice because there are people who are willing to line their pocketbooks versus help people.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's why like it was mentioned, you know, including law enforcement. So I guarantee they've already got people fucking pinned down, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think we'll definitely have a lot of updates in the coming weeks and months because we're not going to go, we're going to close out here in a second. We're not going to go into like the theories and all this other stuff because it's like, it's speculation and all talk at the moment. So with that, we will keep an eye out and I'm sure we will have another update coming your way probably in the next few months, I would say.
Oh yeah.
For sure, if not sooner. And just because of the type of crimes with this case, I just wanted to mention a couple resources. So if you or anyone you know needs any help with any of these kind of crimes, there is the National Sexual Assault Hotline. It will be in the show notes for you guys. It is 800-656-4673. And also, I do want to mention the Domestic Violence Hotline as well. And that is 800-799-7233. Or you can text BEGIN to 88788. With that, guys, we will go ahead and sign off and we will see you next week. Bye.
Toodles.